Julia and I love to escape to this little cabin in Northern California. My great-great-grandfather built it in 1901. A place surrounded by redwoods, not too far from the crashing ocean. A place that feels timeless. This past July, we went there for a few days. We hiked beneath trees that are older than America. We breathed in the salt air. We let the noise of Los Angeles fall away. And then it was Friday. Shabbat was coming. So that morning we drove into Healdsburg to one of the best bakeries in the country so I could buy a challah. We stopped at one of our favorite wineries for a bottle of wine. And that evening, I cooked a meal. Barbecue chicken, farm stand vegetables, fresh greens. The table was set. The wine was poured. The challah was covered. Everything was ready. Till I looked around and I realized we had no candles. I could have sworn I'd seen some, but I couldn't find them anywhere. That table was filled with food. The cabin was full of silence, because our children were not there with us. And it seemed that we were about to welcome Shabbat in total darkness. And we're entering into these high holidays with that same sense of darkness. Every day seems to bring another reminder of our vulnerability, of our worst fears slowly blooming before our very eyes. And that's just from being a citizen of the world. As Jews, add a few more layers of pain and confusion and fear, a deeper and deeper sense of isolation. The twin forces of antisemitism and anti-Zionism, they're creating a double bind. One driving us inward to protect ourselves, the other attacking our foundational claims to peoplehood. So many of us don't feel prepared to deal with these forces. But we can't live in a reactive state of mind. We have to be proactive. For too long, many of us have settled for self-definitions of Judaism that sound meaningful, but don't give us the depth we need right now in this moment. Since becoming a rabbi, I have often heard people say, I'm a cultural Jew, or I'm more spiritual. I hear a lot of, I'm not religious. Many say they don't keep Shabbat, or kosher, or don't know Hebrew, didn't enjoy Hebrew school. The stories we tell about ourselves are powerful, but sometimes they become cages. Our tradition has a word for that. Mitzrayim means the narrow place. Every year at Passover, we tell the story of leaving Egypt. The Hebrew word for Egypt is Mitzrayim. But the Exodus story is not just about geography. It's about breaking free from narrow places around us and inside ourselves. So when we say, I'm just cultural, or I'm only spiritual, we're staying in Mitzrayim. Those self-definitions are starter versions of Jewish life. They're valuable stepping stones, but they are not destinations. Not when there is a vast, wide open promised land of Jewish experience waiting, just waiting. Religious Judaism is where the real power lies. Too often, we Reform Jews surrender this word, as if religious belongs only to those who follow every traditional law. This is a profound mistake. Being religious is not about the quantity of rules you follow. It's about the quality of intention you bring. It demands commitment, embraces obligation, transforms routine into sacred purpose. That's hardly a price to pay for all that it's worth. When we ground ourselves in religious Jewish identity, we plug into a living and breathing system that has sustained our people through every conceivable challenge for over 3 millennia. We access wisdom that works, practices that transform, and a community structure that creates resilience. Last year, my daughters learned the yes and method in their improv class at school. The art of building upon whatever is happening in the scene, always expanding what others created. A religious mindset works the same way. It's about adding Jewish depth to the life that we're already living. Picture this. It's Friday night. You invite some friends over. And when they walk through the door, instead of asking, how bad was the traffic? You say, Shabbat Shalom. Something shifts in that instant. The energy changes in the room. You're doing something more than just greeting someone. You're announcing that this space, this time, this gathering is something special. There's a sense of arrival, of intention, of choosing to be Jewish in that moment. When you say Shabbat Shalom, that's not cultural or spiritual Judaism. That's religious Judaism. Now imagine, you're walking past shops and restaurants. A man sits quietly on the sidewalk, a sign, a cup, eyes lowered. Normally you'd pass by, but this time you stop. You look him in the eye. You smile. You place a few dollars in his cup. Small act, yes. But in that moment, you live out 2 eternal Jewish values. Tselem Elohim, seeing the humanity in the other, and giving tzedakah. That is religious Judaism. Here's another one. A coworker loses their father. You clear your schedule. You go to the funeral. You even go to the shiva. You don't say much. You don't have to. Your presence is the comfort. And in that silence, you can feel it. You are part of something so much larger. You are fulfilling one of the most sacred obligations in our tradition. That is religious Judaism. Each of those examples represents the same thing: the transformation of an otherwise routine moment into an opportunity for Jewish intention and practice. You want to know how to build a religious life? By adding sacred purpose to the life that you are already living. It means we step into a deeper pool of obligation, a firmer commitment to Jewish learning, and a more daring willingness to explore the beautiful riches of our tradition. When we claim for ourselves and begin living as religious Jews, 3 things happen. First, we gain moral clarity, rooted in wisdom 3,000 years old. So when antisemitism rears its head in graffiti, in violence, on our screens, we don't panic. We remember that we've seen this before. And the Jewish response is not fear, it's strategy. We play the long game. We draw on history and resilience and the values of our people. And when we face tough choices in our own lives, we know how to turn to our texts and our stories for ethical wisdom. Abraham's fortitude, Moses' humility, Miriam's optimism, Shifra and Puah's bravery. Second, we embrace Jewish authority. As religious Jews, we make time to learn about our ancient texts and uncover our own interpretations. We know the difference between Torah and Tanakh, between Mishnah and Talmud. But more than that, we discover that our voices matter, that our questions belong inside this tradition. And with that discovery comes a confidence that allows us to walk into any Jewish space and engage fully. Because we're not wondering if we belong. We know we do. Third, we inherit words, melodies, prayers, and rituals crafted for life's most challenging moments. When we sit in a hospital room, when we stand graveside, when we hold a friend in the middle of heartbreak, when our child wrestles with addiction. Judaism gives us a framework for grief, a language for suffering. Our rituals transform loneliness into connection. And when joy arrives, we have blessings. We have music. We have words of gratitude that lift us higher and higher. Moral clarity, Jewish authority, sacred resilience. That's what a religious life gives us. This isn't the first time, though, that Jews have had to reinvent what it means to live as religious Jews. Because in the early 1700s, Jewish communities across Eastern Europe had been decimated by massacres. Survivors were left with nothing but grief and fear. They lived under oppressive laws, constant violence. Even their own leaders felt far away, focusing on scholarship that was so elite that ordinary Jews felt excluded from their own tradition. The world wanted Jews to disappear. But a small group, led by the Baal Shem Tov, refused. They chose the opposite path. They chose to be radically visible. They danced in the streets. They sang their prayers louder. They brought joy back into Judaism. The Baal Shem Tov taught that a poor wagon driver who was reciting psalms at work was praying more authentically than a scholar who was studying Talmud without devotion. One famous story tells of a shepherd boy who on Yom Kippur couldn't read Hebrew, so he simply recited the Aleph Bet, whispering, "God, take these letters and make the prayers for me." Others were horrified by the boy's ignorance, but the Baal Shem Tov declared, "This boy's pure prayer has carried all of ours directly to heaven." That movement, Hasidism, spread like fire because people were desperate for joy, for meaning, for a Judaism that belonged to them. So here's the lesson. When the world tries to diminish us, the most radical thing to do is not to shrink back, it's to rise up. Not to survive, but to thrive. They did it 300 years ago, and I think we can do it today. We can be a community of religious Jews. Jews who live with kavanah, with intention. With keva, the structure and obligations of our tradition. And with chutzpah, the bravery and self-confidence to navigate this world with purpose and hope and joy. On Rosh Hashanah, we declare Hayom Harat Olam. Today, the world is born. Well, tonight, something new can be born inside all of us. And when enough of us claim religious Jewish identity together, we change more than just our personal relationship with Judaism. We ignite a renaissance that our children and our grandchildren will inherit. So back at that cabin, that Friday night, this summer, we stood there, no Shabbat candles. Then Julia turned to me. She said, "Give me your phone." As always, I listen to what she says. She switched on the flashlight. She placed the phone on the table. And then she did the same with hers. And suddenly, there they were. 2 pillars of light, rising from the table, illuminating our faces. I turned to my brilliant wife. I pulled her close. And we offered the blessings. First over our phone lights, then over some Russian River Valley wine, and finally over that delicious challah. And in that moment, I felt this surge of pride, not just in Julia's creativity, but in the deeply Jewish way that we solved our candle dilemma. Because this is who we are. When the temple in Jerusalem was destroyed, we built portable Judaism through prayer. When we were scattered across the globe, we carried our traditions into new languages and new cultures. When COVID forced us apart, we created Zoom seders and online services. And here at Wilshire Boulevard Temple, we even made some Sesame Street-style YouTube videos for our students. We've always found new ways to bring light into the darkness. Those flashlights weren't a compromise. They were continuity. They were part of a 3,000-year-old chain of Jewish innovation. Yes, we are living in a sea of darkness right now. But we are not blind. We are not lost. We have the map. It's in the ark. It's in our hands. It's in our souls. And it's time. It's time for us to claim it. So as we begin 5786, let's hold up our lights. Let's let them shine high for ourselves, for each other, and for the whole world to see. Shana Tova.